of the series to the Memphis Grizzlies in a stunning turn of events. In 6 hours, the Jazz lose Donovan Mitchell, who they thought was playing, and then they end up losing to the Memphis Grizzlies and now trail the series 1-0. What happened? How significant? And what does it mean moving forward? Ron Boone is here with me to talk about it all. Coming up on POSTCAST. POSTCAST is brought to you by Grip 6 belts at grip6.com. Grip 6. Go check it out. The promo code locked on for 15. Eject this woman. Eject this woman. Kick her out of here. She's strutting. A little Grizzly love over there, strutting. Love you, dear. That is Brad Jones's wife, by the way, making her appearance here on the show. Very happy. He is now an assistant coach with the Memphis Grizzlies. Ron Boone, before we get to the chat and get everybody's comments, what happened?
Well, a few things happened, and it all started in the first quarter. They blew up the Jazz offense out on the perimeter. They were very aggressive, and Brooks just took a couple of players anyway, out of what the Jazz were trying to do, which brings up a point. I'm not really sure what the Jazz were trying to do, other than the fact that they wanted to run the pick and roll from the middle of the floor to the sideline. That they were not able to get into that, and so I don't know. It couldn't really tell what they tried to counter that with.
So the game opens. We talked about a few things early. Memphis was going to play drop big style and force the Jazz to make off the bounce 3-point shots. The Jazz opened the game in the first quarter going 1 of 8 on off the bounce threes. They only get 2 catch and shoots. They go 2 of 10. The Jazz seem to have recovered from that into the third quarter. They lead at 54-50, and Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert end up with 4 fouls without Donovan Mitchell. And frankly, that changed the game. The Jazz could not overcome that. They tried to stay in it. Then Mike Conley came back in, and by the end of the fourth quarter, it was 83-74, Grizzlies by 9. And the killer, Ron, is that, well, if you really look when the Jazz have been at their best, and it's going to be interesting to see whether they can do this in the playoffs, is that lineup at the end of the first quarter into the second quarter, and the end of the third into the fourth is when they've crushed people. It's what they did in the first quarter. They went on a 10-0 run. But when Gobert's out of the game, you're suddenly not running that lineup. And when Rudy checked out of the game, I think he was plus 10 or plus 9. Like, the Jazz just had to have Rudy on the floor. And without Donovan and without Rudy and without Mike Conley, for an extended stretch of the game, Memphis was the better team and took over the game in that stretch.
Well, Rudy ends up getting only 25 minutes. That's definitely not enough. And a lot of that had to do, as you just mentioned, because of foul trouble. Quinn had said in one of the post-game show interviews that, there's going to be some guys that had to spend a little bit more time on the floor, play a little bit more minutes than normal. And obviously you would think that would be Rudy Gobert. But as you mentioned, without him out there on the floor, it's a big difference in how the opponents score. Now, Derek Favors had one heck of a basketball game. He played very, very well. But, it's a big difference defensively anyway when Rudy's on the floor.
Dylan Brooks is the story of the night. He was the best player on the floor, both offensively and defensively. We'll have to go rewatch it. But for right now, my viewpoint is that he took Joe Ingles out of the game early. He changed what Mike Conley was able to do in the third quarter while simultaneously dropping 29 points on the Jazz and taking over the game for a period of time, allowing John Morant to have enough juice late in the game to take it over late.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was as physical as he is. I mean, he's very strong. And I didn't realize that he was as physical as he is, and moves his feet very well as well. Offensively, I think what I was surprised at, I had to look and check and see, his season high is 32 points. He ended up with 31 here tonight. But that third quarter, with him knocking down jump shots with a hand in his face, that was what I was very surprised about.
There were about 2 or 3 sequences. I don't remember all of them. I just remember calling it in which, like, back and forth, which swung the game. Conley missed a 3. They made a shot. Jaren Jackson with an incredible block came back with a 3. Those were those swings that they made those. I don't remember us making those kind of sequences.
Yeah, it stopped the Jazz run. That was one heck of a defensive play because I think it was Jackson who blocked the shot, and then Jackson who ended up getting a 3 on the next possession in the same sequence. So the Jazz had some momentum going, and the Grizzlies were able to stop it, put the fire out and everything. Now you're starting to play uphill again. But the Jazz had some fight tonight. They stayed in it. Boyan comes to life and gave the Jazz a chance to win.
All right, let's go to your questions and your comments here on Postcast. I'll rewatch the game and have more to talk about on Locked On Jazz. Coming up, I think this is going to be the reoccurring comment. Let me see if I can find this. I just saw it come in. I think it was from Carol. But I think this is going to be the reoccurring comment, and I think this is a little bit of the story of the night as well. And now, of course, I can't find it because I didn't have any idea how many comments had come in here. Carol Lynn Peterson says, Brooks headbutting people, shoving his own player, and taking a swing at Royce. Cody Lynn, not Cody. So, yeah, like Dylan Brooks came in here in a playoff game and made it a street fight and punked the Utah Jazz, and it took him a long time to react.
There are players in the league that can test you, get under your skin just by playing physical. Then there's other guys that will take shots at you just to see how you respond. Sometimes that takes guys out of the ball game. So if I'm beating you up, you're going to spend more time trying to get back at me or whatever. But it takes you, and I thought maybe that did happen. That doesn't happen to Joe that often, but I thought he just flat out took Joe out of the ball game.
If you're Memphis and you're coming in here to play the Jazz play a beautiful game, and they've played it 3 times against them and throttled them 3 times this year. If you're coming in here, that's what you have to do. Without Donovan, the other one was the key other stretch of this game is without Donovan, when Mike Conley left the game and they didn't let Joe Ingles go get the ball, Jordan Clarkson and Bojan Bogdanovic could not handle it.
Yeah.
They absolutely could not handle in any way. Jordan says, what a game by Faves. He'll be key in the series with his physicality. Derek gave every ounce of everything he had tonight. He was great. Now, I don't know whether the numbers are going to show that his effort was productive. Some of his effort was as productive. Like, he made big plays. He did a lot of things. He had a lot of highlights. I think our defensive numbers with him on the floor are going to be atrocious because Ja Morant was able to get to the rim and score a lot during those sequences, which may not be his fault, but just in the sense he was really, really good. But a season-long issue has been us defending when Rudy's off the floor. I think that'll be a story by the time you look at the numbers again.
Yeah, Derek averages about 15 minutes a ball game. He ended up playing about 23, 24 minutes a night. But I think as far as his overall play, his rebounding, he blocked a couple of shots, and it was productive for him out there on the floor. Now, whether defensively it was productive for the team, that's a little bit different story.
He had 4 block shots tonight. So I mean, he looked great. He had more bounce. He had great energy. Looked like the rest really helped him. Robbie says Jazz in 5. Okay,
I'll go with that. Yeah.
Really poor timing for Clarkson to end his 3-point streak. Also, Dylan Brooks is the absolute worst. Oh, I'm pretty certain we're not going to like Dylan Brooks very much. Clarkson's streak stays alive because it's a regular season streak.
Yeah, Brooks was the 45th pick in the draft, so he might be a little bit bitter about that.
Jazz need to admit that sitting Donovan was a mistake. He's ready to go, and they need him. Okay, I mean, clearly the Jazz medical staff, according to Quinn Snyder today in the press conference, the Jazz medical staff decided that Donovan Mitchell was not ready, and so it was certainly a very bizarre and hard to swallow as a fan, I'm sure, sequence from Donovan. About 12 hours or about 24 hours, Donovan gets taken off the injury list, so he's going to play. He holds a media session with the fans, says he has no pain, and that he just has some soreness, and then they announce he's not playing. Certainly a stunner. I was stunned. I don't know any more than any of you, so I can understand the frustration of it, but clearly, like, the guys whose job it is to evaluate, it seems, made the decision that he was not ready to play on that. With how bad the game was, Favors was awesome. Thanks, Fave. That's why we picked him up, says Tyson Tanner. Second quarter was hard to watch. Second quarter is where when Mike Conley left the game and they didn't let Joe Ingles get the ball, that Jordan Clarkson and Bojan Bogdanovic just were not ready for that. That's where you really missed Donovan.
Yeah, absolutely. Donovan was probably the only one of those guys if Conley's off the floor that could make they can make something happen. That can beat guys off the dribble. Now, Jordan, that's a little bit different. Let's just take him out of it. But Donovan Mitchell can just flat out, get the job done. He can distribute the basketball. He's a willing passer. He can knock down the three. So when Quinn talks about we have 3 guys that can play the playmaking role, He's talking about Conley. He's talking about Donovan Mitchell and Joe Ingles. Okay, Conley's out of the ball game, and now the Memphis Grizzlies take Joe Ingles out of the game. So there was no one there.
Paul says in 6 games, more realistic for the Jazz to win the series instead of 5 as far as winning the series. How about we win game 2?
How are we going to win?
I said, how about we win game 2?
Yeah, let's do that first.
Whether we win the series in 5 or 6.
Yeah.
This is just fundamentally not true, and I want to make sure that this myth is eliminated. The Jazz thought they could sit Donovan Mitchell because they could easily beat the Grizzlies.
No.
There wasn't an ounce of that. In fact, Ron Boone told me before the Grizzlies-Golden State game that he'd rather play the Warriors than the Grizzlies.
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because I just think that from what I saw with the Grizzlies, that especially with Jackson being back, that a better matchup, regardless of how great Steph Curry is, that the Jazz would probably have a better chance or easier chance of beating the Golden State Warriors than the Memphis Grizzlies. Draymond Green, as good as he is, could also be as great for the Jazz if he's in the ball game.
That's your guy. Tyson Tanner says, does Clarkson's game hurt us in the playoffs, or was it just a bad game? So up until last year, Jordan's playoff record was checkered at best. In 26 games in the playoffs, he has shot 37% and 29% for 3 for his career. That's not so good. However, last year against Denver, he shot 46% from the field, 35% from 3, and averaged 17 points a game. So the hope would be that in this system, he's better than he was for Cleveland in their playoff system.
One thing about Clarkson, if you watched him play tonight, he dribbles a lot to free himself. And he was dribbling to a crowd of players tonight. Sometimes there was 2 or 3 players around him while he's trying to get his shot off. So if he's not looking to pass and dribbling and trying to get a shot off and with eyes out, as Quinn like to put it, to find his teammates, then yeah, he might struggle in this ball game because they know he wants to score off the dribble and he's going to dribble around, eat up time on the clock. And there was about 2 or 3 guys around him quite a bit of time.
Here's the worry I have on Jordan Clarkson. If I can find a number that tells me that Jordan Clarkson has had 155 isolations this year and thrown 20 passes off those and taken 135 shots, the opponent knows that as well. That would be my concern. And you scout everyone and every ounce of everything in the playoffs. So that would be my concern.
So, and if you know that,
they know it.
They know that, right.
And, because we got to have it, Quinn Snyder blew it by benching Rudy Gobert with his 4th foul. Let's make sure we blame the coach before we're done. Reminder, Del Toledo, other than often your takes are ridiculous, but I love you because you're always here for me, so I appreciate that, but I'm going to call you out on it. He fouled out with 4:35 left in the game tonight. So in the old school of thought is that actually, I'm not actually a big believer that you take a player out of the game for foul trouble because by definition, you're creating the foul trouble by taking him out of the game. So in that sense, Del, I agree with you. However, in this case, he fouled out of the game, which means he didn't take any fouls home to put on his pillow, which means that's not a great take. But I love you. We'll talk to you because you'll be with us next time, and I appreciate loyalty. But if I didn't call you out, I wasn't being me, and then you'd be upset. So at least one thing's that we knew it was going to be today. I was going to be me. The Jazz weren't the Jazz. Ron was Ron. We were consistent. Hopefully we win game